Queen Nerwin stepped through the swirling shadows of the portal and returned to the cold halls of Vandariel. The chill of the necropolis greeted her as she walked down the stone corridor. The air smelled faintly of damp earth and ancient magic, and the walls were hung with flickering torches that cast long, dancing shadows. As she moved deeper into the castle, her keen gaze fell upon a skeletal servant, his empty eyes flickering with an unnatural light as he made his way past.
"Where is Lord Valor?"
she asked the servant, her voice low and commanding. The skeleton stopped and turned his head toward her, creaking as he spoke.
"My lady, he is in his study practicing his art. I will take you there."
She nodded curtly, and the skeleton led her down the winding corridors. They passed countless doors, each hiding unknown horrors, until they reached a large iron door adorned with runes that glowed faintly in the dim light. A servant creaked the door, revealing the necromancer's inner sanctum. Inside, Lord Valor was surrounded by ancient tomes, scrolls of forbidden knowledge, and shelves filled with sinister artifacts. The room itself seemed heavy with dark energy. Black candles burned on a stone altar, their flames casting a sickly green hue. The walls were covered in old tapestries depicting scenes of conquest and necromancy, and the air was thick with the smell of incense and burnt sacrifices. In the center of the room, Valor stood before a large obsidian lectern, hunched over a worn book bound in cracked blackened leather. He muttered in an ancient tongue, his hands raised as tendrils of shadow rose from the pages and swirled around him. His staff stood beside him, glowing darkly, the runes etched into it glowing faintly with the power he commanded. Nerwin watched for a moment, admiring the power that radiated from him, before speaking.
"You are making progress, my lord."
Valor turned, a dark smile spreading across his face as the shadows dissipated.
Nerwin.
He greeted her.
"You have returned. I trust your undertaking was successful."
"It was more than successful,"
she said, pulling a folded map from beneath her cloak. She held it out to him.
"I have what you seek. This is where the staff of the Spirit Caller lies, hidden deep beneath Stonehold, guarded but vulnerable."
Valor's eyes gleamed with excitement as he snatched the map from her hands, his fingers trembling slightly. He unrolled the parchment and traced the lines with intense concentration.
"The staff,"
he muttered.
"Finally, I will reclaim what was stolen from my father. With this, our enemies will tremble before us."
Nerwin watched him, her eyes narrowing slightly as she assessed his ambition.
"Yes, but there is one thing you must consider. It would be unwise to act too quickly. We must wait before we act."
He looked up from the map, surprised.
"Wait? Why wait? We can move now, gather a force, and reclaim it before anyone suspects."
Before he could finish, there was a faint rustling sound from the corner of the room. They both froze, their eyes darting to the source of the noise. A dark shape, barely visible, moved in the shadows near one of the tall windows. Her eyes narrowed.
"What is it?"
she hissed, her hand instinctively moving toward the dagger at her belt. Valor raised his staff, the tip glowing with dark energy.
"I can't see anything,"
he said, though his voice was unsure.
"There's something hiding there."
Nerwin insisted, her eyes never leaving the feeble figure.
"In the corner."
Valor tightened his grip on his staff, muttering incantations under his breath. The room darkened as tendrils of shadow gathered around the top of the staff. Suddenly, lightning erupted from the tip, shooting toward the corner. The lightning briefly illuminated the figure, revealing a translucent ghost-like figure darting through the air. He cursed as his lightning missed its target, the ghostly figure moving too fast to hit.
"Damn it!"
he growled. He sent another wave of dark energy at her, but the figure twisted in midair and slid through the small hole in the window with incredible speed. Nerwin lunged for the window, slamming it shut. Her face was tense, but she quickly regained her composure.
There are spies in your castle,
she muttered. Feller's expression darkened further, rage boiling just beneath the surface.
Who would dare spy on me?
He growled, tightening his grip on his staff. Nerwin turned to him, her voice icy and calm.
I have a suspicion,
she said.
I think it was my daughter, Lyriel, and her fairy friend.
Feller nodded, though his anger still simmered.
Spies in my castle. It's an insult I won't tolerate.
She straightened.
I will deal with her, but first we must return to business. I asked you to wait, for there is one more thing we need. My sister Thalira is hiding in the kingdom of Katrak. I need her power for what comes next.
Trolls and orcs?
His voice was full of disdain.
Why should we trust them?
Nerwin smiled faintly.
Trolls and orcs cannot be trusted, nor can my sister. She has her reasons for helping us, and with her magic we will be unstoppable. Be patient, Valor. Soon the staff will be yours, and Elantia will fall.
Feller considered her words, turning his gaze back to the map. Finally he nodded, though the hunger in his eyes remained.
Very well, but how will you get your sister to help us?
Nerwin stood in Lord Valor's dark office, her expression cold and calculating as she considered her next move. The pale, flickering torchlight reflected off her dark eyes, making them even more inscrutable. Her lips curved into a knowing smile.
Alaris's throne.
Valor raised an eyebrow, intrigued.
You would give her the throne, and in return, she would aid us in this campaign?
She would do more than aid.
Nerwin replied, her tone grim and confident.
For the throne of Alaris, my sister would do anything. Her lust for power rivals even yours, Valor.
He thought for a moment, walking lightly.
Do you think Thalira would agree to such terms?
She would,
Nerwin said confidently.
She has long coveted my position, and this will seem like a golden opportunity. But I will still remain at the helm from the shadows. Once we have what we need, she will be a useful puppet on the throne.
Valor's eyes gleamed with understanding.
Very well. And the trolls and orcs? What of them?
Her smile widened.
She must help me persuade the Troll King Malgrum to attack the kingdom of Mithrandorn while we besiege Elantia. His hatred of humans runs deep, and given the right incentive, he would gladly strike at their borders. With Mithrandorn distracted, our forces will meet less resistance when we march on Elantia.
Valor nodded approvingly.
It is a sensible plan. I hope she can persuade Malgrim to join our alliance.
He will. He is a brute, but he knows when he sees an opportunity. The destruction of Mithrandorn will feed his ambition, and the chaos will make it easier for us to strike.
She paused and looked Valor straight in the eye.
But first I must meet my sister and secure her allegiance.
Valor held her gaze for a moment before speaking.
Then I will prepare my forces. But make no mistake, Nerwin, my patience is wearing thin. Do not keep me waiting.
She bowed her head.
You will not have to wait long. Open the portal and return me to Alaris. When my business is done, I will return, and you will cast me to Malgrim.
Valor raised his staff, and with a few whispered words, a dark portal swirled through space. Shadows stretched and twisted like snakes, and Nerwin stepped without hesitation. As she disappeared into the darkness, he was alone in the flickering light of his chamber, his mind already planning his next move. Narwin emerged from the portal, back in the cold halls of Alaris. Captain Varoth awaited her, his armor gleaming in the low light as he bowed deeply.
My queen,
Warath greeted her.
the preparations are almost complete.
Good.
Narwin replied, her tone sharp.
But hurry. We have no time to waste.
He inclined his head.
Of course, I will make sure everything is ready.
Narwin's gaze turned thoughtful, and she asked,
Where is my daughter?
She is in her chambers.
Varoth answered.
She rarely leaves there these days.
With an enigmatic face, Narwin gave a little nod as she made her way to her daughter's chamber.
Very well.
The queen entered her daughter's room after removing her cloak. In Lyriel's room, the young princess sat at her desk, hunched over scrolls and books filled with arcane symbols, working on her studies with Professor Talion. When the door opened and her mother walked inside, Lyriel did not look up at first. But when she realized who it was, she put down her quill and looked up to meet her mother's gaze, though there was no warmth in her expression.
Mother,
Lyriel said, her voice cool.
I see you've finally returned. You haven't been seen for some time.
Narwin's smile was thin, a mask that hid far more than it revealed.
I've been attending to important matters in the kingdom of Galendria.
Lyriel's eyes narrowed slightly.
Galandria, is it? Strange. I've heard you were at Valor's stronghold recently.
Narwin's eyes hardened for a brief moment, though her smile never wavered.
You ask too many questions, child.
She said, her voice cold.
Where is your friend, the fairy Alindra?
Lyriel hesitated for a heartbeat before answering.
I haven't seen her in some time. Why? What do you want with her?
Narwin stepped closer, her eyes piercing.
I thought I saw her recently, sticking her nose into things that don't concern her. It would be a shame if she got hurt.
Lyriel's heart raced, but she kept her face calm.
I'll be sure to let her know.
Narwin studied her daughter for a moment, as if measuring her. Then she straightened.
I have a task for you.
Lyriel's brow furrowed slightly.
What task?
You are to go to Mithrandorn.
Narwin said, her voice cool and commanding.
You will act as a diplomat and sign a trade agreement. You leave tomorrow.
Lyriel blinked in surprise, but she nodded slowly.
I don't mind. I'll go.
Narwin's smile returned, but there was no warmth in it.
Good. Be ready.
With these words, she turned and walked out of the room, her cloak fluttering behind her. A little while later, the small figure of Alindra fluttered into Lyriel's room through the open window. Lyriel's face brightened when she saw her fairy friend.
Alindra, I'm so glad to see you.
Alindra settled on the edge of the desk, her wings shimmering in the dim light.
I'm glad to see you too. What happened? Your mother was asking about me.
Lyriel's expression grew serious.
She noticed you. She knows you were there, but you managed to slip away just in time.
Alindra frowned.
I overheard them talking about a map and a staff. They want to retrieve some staff that belonged to Valor's father.
Lyriel's heart sank.
That's worse than I thought.
She said softly.
That staff, it holds dark power. If Valor gets his hands on it, it will tip the balance in his favor.
The fairy nodded gravely.
Your mother has dangerous plans. You need to be careful.
Lyriel sighed.
I know, and now she's sending me on a mission to Mithrandorn tomorrow. It's supposed to be a diplomatic trip, but I suspect there's more to it.
Alindra fluttered her wings nervously.
Be careful. Lyriel, I'll keep an eye on things here. And I'll contact you if I find anything else.
Lyriel reached out and gently touched the fairy's hand.
And you be careful, too. Even with the cloak, your silhouette can still be seen. Stay hidden.
I will.
Elindra promised.
Good luck, Lyriel. We'll get through this.
With a soft flutter of wings, the fairy darted out the window and disappeared into the night, leaving Lyriel to prepare for the mission that lay ahead. The next morning, Queen Nerwin stood at the gates of Alaris, watching her daughter Lyriel set out for Mithrandarn on a diplomatic mission. The sun had just peeked over the horizon, casting long shadows across the cobbled streets. Lyriel, riding on horseback with several advisors, took one last look at her mother, her face calm but her mind troubled. As she passed, Nerwin turned toward the castle, her mind already on her next task, returning to Lord Valor. As she made her way to her chambers, her footsteps echoing through the dimly lit halls, Captain Varoth suddenly appeared, catching up with her, a worried look in his eyes.
Forgive me, Your Majesty,
Oroth began, his voice low and urgent.
but some Ithildor has come to see you.
Nerwin stopped where she stood, surprise flickering across her face.
Ithildor?
She asked, her voice sharp with curiosity.
Who is he and what does he want?
He claims to be a noble and an advisor to King Phalar.
Varoth explained.
He says he has a proposition for you.
Her eyes narrowed in thought.
Interesting.
She murmured. She studied Varoth for a moment, her mind racing.
Do you think this is a trap?
He hesitated, then shook his head slightly.
I do not know, Your Majesty. Should I send him away?
Nerwin's lips curved into a weak smile.
No. Take him to the throne room. I will see him there soon.
Varoth bowed and quickly left to do her bidding. Alone for a moment, Nerwin considered this unexpected visit carefully. Phalar's advisor here in Alaris? That was most unusual. However, the Queen had long ago learned that even the most dangerous moves could bring great rewards if played correctly. She returned to her chambers and quickly changed into a royal gown, dark and rich with emerald accents, befitting her power and station. Her long, dark hair flowed like water down her back as she prepared for whatever game Ithildor attempted to play. Satisfied with her appearance, she slipped out of the room and made her way to the throne room. Nerwin sat on the throne, her bearing regal and imposing.
Bring him in.
She commanded. Guard opened the great doors, and a tall, slender elf with long white hair and a solemn expression entered the throne room. Ithildor moved gracefully, his movements smooth as silk as he approached the Queen. He bowed low, his face betraying nothing but respect.
Your Majesty.
Ithildor greeted her, his voice calm and collected. Nerwin's eyes remained sharp and unreadable as she studied him.
What brings you to Alaris, Ithildor?
She asked, her tone commanding but also curious. Ithildor straightened, his face serious.
I serve as an advisor to King Phalar, Your Majesty. I come with information and a proposition. All of Elantia is buzzing with your alliance with Lord Valor. Rumors of war are spreading, and many expect trouble soon.
Her inclined her head slightly, her gaze still fixed on him.
Interesting.
She said, her voice slow and measured.
And what do you seek?
Ithildor met her gaze, his expression unwavering.
I offer my services, Your Majesty.
He said.
I am willing to help you strengthen your position during the conquest of Elantia. In return, I ask that my family and I be spared the coming storm. I am pragmatic. I know when it is time to join the victors.
She leaned forward slightly, her fingers tapping the arm of her throne.
And why should I trust you, Ithildor? What proof do I have that this is not some elaborate trap?
Ithildor hesitated for only a split second before answering.
I take a great risk in being here, Your Majesty. If my presence is discovered, I will lose everything, my title, my lands, my life.
His eyes darkened.
King Phalar does not forgive betrayal.
Queen considered his words carefully. He was treading a dangerous path, that much was obvious, but in her world such risks often paid off. Trust was not something Nerwin gave freely, however.
I will consider your offer.
She said at last, her voice cold.
If I find you can be of use to me, I will contact you. Until then, keep your head down.
Isildur bowed low again, his face calm but a flicker of relief in his eyes.
As you command, Your Majesty.
Virat escorted him from the throne room, and when the doors closed behind him, the captain turned to Nerwin, his brow furrowed in worry.
Your Majesty,
Virat said carefully.
do you think this might be a trap? King Phalar is not one to be easily trusted.
Nerwin smiled faintly, her expression thoughtful.
Perhaps, but I doubt it. Isildur seems more like a nobleman scrambling to save his own skin. Such people can be useful in times like these.
Captain nodded, though the concern did not leave his eyes.
Shall I have him watched?
She smile faded and her gaze became steely.
No. Let him believe he has my trust for now. We will see how loyal he truly is when the time comes.
Bareth bowed deeply.
Of course, Your Majesty. And what of your next move?
Nerwin rose from the throne, her presence commanding the room.
I will return to Lord Valor,
she said.
There is much to be done. Continue the preparations here and await my instructions.
He straightened, determination in his eyes.
It will be done, Your Majesty.
With swift, determined steps, Nerwin strode out of the throne room, her dress billowing behind her like a shadow. The intricate stone halls of Alaris blurred around her, details forgotten as her thoughts raced forward. She barely noticed the palace guards or the quiet murmurs of distant conversations. Her thoughts were already elsewhere, on the next phase of her plan. When she reached her chamber deep within the castle, Nerwin paused and took a slow, steadying breath. The air in the room was cold and still, and the faint smell of burnt herbs lingered from her previous spells. It was time. From a small pouch at her belt, Nerwin pulled out a handful of ancient runes, arcane symbols etched into their surfaces that glowed faintly when they touched her palm. She whispered words of power, the necromancer's tongue curling through the chamber like a dark melody, her voice growing louder and more commanding with each syllable. The air around her began to hum with energy, a growing tension that made even the stones of the chamber tremble. Slowly, a swirling mass of darkness formed before her, spinning faster and faster until the shadows coalesced into a tall, rippling portal. It was a gate of pure shadow, its surface like black glass, shimmering with sinister shades of violet and blue. Nerwin stepped into the portal, her eyes narrowed in concentration. The air around it was cold, almost prickly, but the queen felt no fear. She had walked this path before, into the dark corners of magic and power, and she knew it well. The shadows clinging to the wall seemed to come to life as she stepped forward, the runes at her sides fading as the portal closed behind her with a soft hiss. To be continued. Thanks for watching.
The sky in a blaze, fighters rise in a haze, shields clash, echoes loud, sword in hand, warriors proud. Mountains high, valleys deep, silent watch as they creep. Moonlight glows, hearts to keep, heroes brave, none shall sleep. Ooh, yeah, in the night, battle cries, burning bright. Raise your hand, feel the might in this epic, endless fight. Stars align, fate foretold, legends born, tales unfold. In the dark, stories old, hearts of fire, spirits bold.
Stars align, fate foretold, legends born, tales unfold. In the dark